Imagine you were born in 10,000 BC. Your mother has already had 7 children before you. 3 of them are dead. 1 more will be dead before you turn 5. You don't know this yet, but statistically, you have about a coin flip's chance of making it to adulthood. Welcome to the family. This is the part where most people assume something went wrong, that ancient humans were reckless or ignorant or simply didn't love their children the way we do. But that's exactly backwards. Ancient humans had so many children for the same reason salmon release millions of eggs and sea turtles bury clutches of 100. Death was the default. Life had to be overproduced just to break even. Here's the number you need to hold in your head. Before modern medicine, before sanitation, before vaccines, before antibiotics, somewhere between 40 and 50% of children died before their 5th birthday. Not in the worst years. In normal years. This wasn't tragedy, it was Tuesday. The background radiation of human existence for the vast majority of our species' time on Earth. And yet humans aren't salmon. We have long pregnancies. We give birth to 1 child at a time. Our infants are helpless for years in a way almost no other animal tolerates. We are biologically a high investment species. And yet for most of human history, families with 8, 10, 12 children were ordinary. That contradiction makes perfect sense once you understand what was driving it. Start with the nomads. For most of prehistory, people moved. Hunter-gatherer mothers couldn't carry more than 1 small child across a landscape at a time. So births spaced themselves out, roughly 3 to 4 years apart, through exhaustion and the suppressive effect of prolonged breastfeeding on fertility. Slow production. Just enough children survived to keep population stable. Then agriculture happened and everything accelerated. When humans settled down, the physical constraint vanished. You didn't need to carry your child across the savanna anymore. You could have another one almost immediately after weaning the last. Birth intervals shortened dramatically. Women who had previously raised 4 children in a lifetime could now raise 8 or 10. And for the first time in human history, having more children wasn't just biologically possible. It was economically rational. This is where modern people flinch, but stay with it. A child in an agrarian household wasn't just a mouth to feed. By age 6 or 7, they could meaningfully contribute. Pulling weeds, feeding animals, watching younger siblings. By adolescence, full working member of a farmhand, insurance policy, retirement plan, and proof that God hadn't abandoned you, all before age 10. In a world with no banks and no pensions, children were the only investment vehicle available. You had many because you needed many. Why would you have 8 children? Because 4 of them were going to die. That's why. If this kind of thing is what you're into, the deep history of why humans do what we do, hit subscribe, because this channel is exactly that. Anyway, there's a piece of this story that doesn't get enough attention, and it involves grandmothers. In the 1990s, anthropologist Kristen Hawkes at the University of Utah noticed something strange while studying the Hadza people of Tanzania. Older women, postmenopausal, no longer reproducing, were working harder than almost anyone else, digging tubers, gathering food, feeding grandchildren, and the grandchildren with active grandmothers were measurably better nourished. Hawkes developed what became known as the grandmother hypothesis. A woman who stops reproducing and instead helps her daughter raise children passes on her genes more efficiently than a woman who keeps trying to reproduce in old age when the risks are high and the odds are poor. Human grandmothers are unusual in the animal kingdom. Most species have no meaningful post-reproductive lifespan. We do, because grandmothers proved so valuable that natural selection extended their lives to keep them in the picture. If grandmothers absorb a share of childcare, mothers can have children more frequently. You're not just one woman raising a family, you're a multi-generational network distributing the labor. That's not sentiment. That's survival architecture. So now you have the complete picture. High child mortality creates pressure for large families. Agriculture removes the physical barrier to frequent births. Children become economic assets. Grandmothers scale the whole system. And for thousands of years, the math holds. Have many. Lose some. Keep enough. Repeat. Then the math changes. In the mid-19th century, something shifted. Sanitation improved. Clean water killed the diseases that took most children before 5. Vaccines arrived, then antibiotics. Child mortality didn't just fall, it collapsed. A universal human experience essentially ended in the industrialized world within a century. But birth rates didn't drop immediately. The first generation after mortality falls still has large families. Because fear doesn't update that fast. Because your grandmother had 12 children and your mother had 8, and some part of you is still running the old calculation even though the variables have completely changed. It takes a generation, sometimes 2, before behavior catches up to reality. That lag, The gap between when children stop dying in large numbers and when families stop overproducing is one of the most revealing delays in all of human history. And then the second generation does the math. When children stop dying and stop working the fields, and raising one to adulthood means 2 decades of housing and schooling and financial support, the equation inverts. The same cold survival logic that once demanded large families now demands small ones. Not because people love children less, because the calculation has flipped entirely. South Korea's fertility rate in 2023 was 0.72, not 2.72. 0.72 children per woman. Italy, Japan, Spain, much of Eastern Europe are all trending below replacement. The species that once overproduced life just to break even is now, in its most prosperous corners, choosing not to produce enough to sustain itself. 300,000 years ago, a mother held a child she knew might not survive the winter and had another one anyway, because that was what survival required. Today, in a glass apartment in Seoul, a woman makes a different calculation and reaches the opposite conclusion. And the logic, if you trace it back far enough, is exactly the same. The species hasn't changed. The math has.